So just back to what's happening today, obviously the news is all about Trump and the trade wars, that there may be trade wars. So with all of this uncertainty around, should we just be investing locally?
Well, I think it'd be very naive to think that investing locally in Australia is going to make you immune from a trade war with China. Is it going to happen or not happen? The deep issue with China is a very significant issue. Whether Trump gets it's a significant issue or not, and he's distinguishing it from his trade disputes he has with Mexico and Canada and the EU, I think that's largely an internal political issue. Trade's bad, I'm going to beat them up and I'm going to get a better deal, I've done the best deal in history. That's what's happening with Mexico and Canada and the EU. There's nothing of real substance in those arguments. With China, there's a very important issue of substance, and to me it's about technology supremacy in the long term. Whoever wins the technological battle has a serious upper hand in cyber and dominance in the world, and China has laid out a very clear plan in their 2025 plan about technological capabilities that they want to lead the world in. Artificial intelligence, driverless cars, quantum computing, semiconductors. These are the key areas that America is leading the world, and China feels, or America feels, that China is stealing its intellectual capital. And that is the real issue at the centre of this. So are they going to dig in here and really take China on in that core issue? If they are, this is going to get deeper and ugly. It's not going to be a deal about soya beans in order to magically improve the trade deficit like they're trying to do with Canada and the EU. It's an issue that China is going to be very reluctant to give any ground on, because it's about their long-term place in the world. If that happens, these trade disputes going to get worse, and it's potentially going to be ugly for the world. If it gets ugly for the world, it will be ugly for China as well. We've got an economy that's actually much more interlinked into China than we may appreciate. Of course, our mining sector is very interlinked into China, but our property market now is interlinked into China. There's been massive investment in our apartment markets in our cities that were bought by many Chinese investors. The reason we got through the GFC, a large part was the Chinese stimulus that we benefited from. Money came into Australia, and the exports through our mining industry were very strong through that period. So if it happens, thinking that we want to come home to our home market as a safe haven, I think would be problematic. What you want to do is to think about, it's probably going to lead to an economic downturn around the world if it happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it happens, it's probably an economic downturn. Therefore, you probably want to think about getting out of cyclical style industries, things that are very economically exposed. We're now at 18% cash in our fund, and we're down to about 10% of the portfolio that we think are recession-prone industries. We own Wells Fargo in America, and we own a big home improvement retailer, Lowe's, in America. They are recession-prone. They're very tied to what the economic cycle is doing. There's massive stimulus being thrown at the economy, and interest rates are going up. In the absence of a major downturn, they're quite good investments to have, but it's a very small part of our portfolio. So even if you're back in Australia, you would want to think about, if that was happening, you probably don't want to own a lot of banks and miners. If our property market turns down because China catches pneumonia, which will affect our property market, and people may not realise it would if that happened, you probably wouldn't want to have all your portfolio in Australian banks and miners, and you wouldn't have all your portfolio in US banks and US cyclical stocks, or European cyclical stocks, or Asian cyclical stocks. So it's just not an Australian question, it's a global question. But I think that the thing of retreating because you're nervous to your home market, thinking it's a safe haven, I think would be a very naive way to think about how to have your portfolio properly constructed if that event was to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. There are risks out there, what's happening with America and the China trade dispute.